So, Brant, you're a pastor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, good, because I'm looking for a little advice.
All right, well, probably should look somewhere
I
else.
should find somebody else. You know, it's funny. You the last time we got together and recorded a podcast, you asked me a question about real drums and synth drums,
Yeah.
and like utilizing those, and that got me in a bit of hot water. And and now I've been having a lot of confrontations, and I'm looking for a good way to settle some of those.
Well, I find the best way to settle any drum confrontation is to see who can play the loudest.
Oh, okay.
That's
have a drum
usually
off.
A drum off. Yes, a drum off. Yeah.
This is bad for me.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be good. I think just a lot of times the louder you can play, and see that again is why real drums are better because
you can play them louder.
you can just unplug the electronic ones.
right.
You can't unplug the other ones. Yeah.
You can hit that little pad harder, but it's not going to sound loud.
That's right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Gosh, that was one of the cool technological advances. Like, and the noise will change depending on how hard you hit
Yeah.
it.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Golly, dynamics. That does it on real drums too. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Yep.
So that's how I would confront them.
That's how you would confront them.
I'd challenge them to a drum off.
Challenge them to a drum.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's one way to do it. There's some, that's the conventional way.
Sure.
There's a lot of other ways to handle confrontation, though.
Right.
And I wanted to talk about this because, so this doesn't happen very often, but you were preaching a sermon series, and I thought it was really, really good. And
Sometimes I swing and I hit. I put the ball in play.
But you've been preaching and have been preaching on the book of Philemon.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody hears the book of Philemon and immediately thinks, "Oh yeah, we're going to talk about slavery."
Right, 100%. Right.
Right. Now, you and I have talked about this. We're kind of done with the slavery conversation,
Right?
Because it's been talked. It's
through and through.
Through.
Yeah.
Although we'll revisit it.
Yeah. Yeah. We will revisit it briefly. Yeah.
Because it keeps coming up.
Yeah.
But you were preaching out of Philemon, and to me, and maybe I just am not around enough preaching.
Good preaching.
I was like, I'd never heard somebody do this before, but you took Philemon and said this is a formula almost for Christian church confrontation and resolving conflict in the church. And I had never heard anybody take Philemon and do that. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to write, obviously I take notes at church. And so I was going through and I put some of those notes together. I was like, here's some of the main points I'm taking from this. I'd love to talk about this a little bit on the podcast and do that. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. I think like you said, Philemon in the slavery topic. It's a good one. But as I really sat down to ask myself, why is this? Because we were specifically doing a series on a book, and one of the questions I asked is, well, what's the purpose of why we have this book? And I think Philemon's one of those really interesting ones because it's like a page, not even a page. For most people, it's like a quarter page of their Bible or half of a page of a Bible, and it's like why did they? I mean, you can talk about this because we've already talked a lot about it. But why did they? What was the purpose? And as I was reading it, I was like, well, Paul's really giving us a lot of good content on how to handle tough conversations. And I think that that's something we gloss over a ton as Christians. We either don't like to have them or we have them completely wrong. And so I kind of took it, you can take Philemon in a lot of, from the historical sense, definitely talking through slavery. But from the sense I was looking at it, I thought this is a good angle to kind of look at how we're called to talk to one another, especially when it comes to confronting or having what I like to call hard conversations or difficult conversations.
Yeah. And I thought it really hit. So let's dive in. So there were three elements that I'm going to bring out in this for the purpose of this podcast.
Sure.
And the three things that I had written down were when we're talking about Christian confrontation or Christian reconciliation or having these difficult conversations.
Right.
Number one, don't do it in a vacuum.
Right.
Number two, do it in love.
Right.
Or as I would write, kill them with kindness.
Kill them with kindness, 100%.
And number three, come with expectation. But that expectation should not be in you or the other, but in God.
In God, 100%. Right? That's the huge one.
Right. Yeah. So you get a chance to see, hey, did I really listen?
Yeah, good. You got it. You got it. That's fantastic. Sometimes I look out there and I'm like, man, I hope someone's getting something out of this. Yeah.
Wow, this one did not return void. All right.
Good. Thank God. Thank you, Jesus. Yeah.
So why don't we start with the first point?
Sure.
And we're going to talk about we don't do this in a vacuum.
Right.
And this is really this is church 101.
Right. Sure.
Church is communion. Church is community. Church is groups working together, people working together. Right. So if we look at Philemon verses 1 through 3, this is how Paul starts his letter. Paul, a prisoner of Christ Jesus, and Timothy, our brother. To Philemon, our beloved brother and fellow worker, and to Apphia, our sister, and to Archippus, our fellow soldier, and to the church in your house, grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ.
Right.
So right off the bat, in his introduction, and Paul does this in like all of his letters.
Right. Yeah.
He talks about who's with him at the time of authorship, right?
Right. Exactly.
He immediately brings in Timothy.
Right. Immediately. Yeah.
Immediately brings in Timothy.
And then never mentions him again.
Yeah.
He gets it at the end. He's like, oh, by the way, he's back there somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But he starts off by saying, hey, Timothy's here.
Timothy's here,
Yeah.
right? And it goes back to that joke that all Paul's letters are, hey, I love what you're doing here. Don't do this one here. And Timothy says hello.
Right.
Yeah.
That's 100% the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, in this example, and this was something you mentioned in your sermon series, bringing in Timothy right away also lends some weight.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of funny to think about that in the concept of Paul.
Sure.
Why does Paul need weight?
Right.
He's Paul.
Right. Well, if you read all of Philemon, you read it, from chapter 1 to chapter 1, and you read it. I think it's 25, 26 verses. I can't remember how many now, but if you read all those verses, it's really funny because he brings these names in, and then proceeds to just be one-on-one with Philemon.
Yeah.
It's like you and me are having a conversation, but he starts with this, and it's really interesting that he mentions Timothy because Timothy. Why? That was when I saw that, I was like, why is he mentioning Timothy? If this is a personal conversation, why is he mentioning Timothy in this conversation? And so then you start, especially because it's Paul.
Yeah.
Right? So then you have to start to think about, well, who is Timothy? And what does Timothy do? And why is Paul inviting Timothy into this conversation right from the beginning? And it's kind of like you said, there is a weightiness that Paul carries with him, being Paul. But even Paul recognizes the limitations of his own authority, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
And I think that's what you begin to see with Timothy.
Yeah.
I'm going to say some stuff, but also Timothy's with me here. So he knows what I'm going to say, and he's kind of co-signing this with me right now.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that can be really important when we kind of dive into some of this stuff.
Sure.
Because I think what Paul always understood is that he had like an office of authority,
right?
But he always appeals more to the authority of Christ,
right?
And what we have to do, I think, consistently is the truth is where our authority lies.
Sure.
It's good for if we look for truth in a vacuum, we come up with some weird ideas,
right? For sure.
Right? So like having those co-signers, having those people be a part of that conversation with us, right?
Right.
And then Paul certainly considers Timothy a co-laborer.
100%. Yeah.
Right? And he set Timothy's church up and all that.
Sure.
But he encourages Timothy. He teaches Timothy. He's
right.
Go do this thing. Be confident. Don't be afraid because
He gives him authority.
Yeah. Right. So he tells him to go do all those things. And then as we read through that verses 1 through 3, we see he introduces several other people.
Sure.
Obviously, he's talking to Philemon.
Yeah.
He's talking to Apphia, and he's talking to Archippus.
Yeah. His fellow soldier.
Right. So he calls Philemon a fellow worker. He calls Archippus a fellow soldier.
Right.
There is, and you consider how he thinks of Timothy.
Right.
There's also a sense of camaraderie.
Right.
That we are all working together for the same purpose and goal.
100%.
Right. And I think that becomes really, really important because now it's more than just Paul's opinion.
Right.
Now it's a common goal.
Right. When he brings Timothy in, and I think that this is such a master move when he brings Timothy in, especially for conversation of confrontation. Right. He's gonna confront him with some stuff here in a second, and he brings Timothy in. First, what he's doing is he's saying, "Oh, Timothy's here," so it adds a little credibility to Paul, saying, "Oh, here's another person." But also, it's saying it's not just me. Yeah. This isn't just my opinion. This is me. And also, by the way, the other people I'm listing, Archippus, a fellow soldier, and Apphia, they're two names that a lot of scholars tie back to Philemon with a personal relation.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's a communal aspect here that Paul is building to say what I'm about to talk about is bigger than just what I'm about to talk about. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And when he brings in Apphia and Archippus, you had said something about that. You talked about that being accountability.
Yeah.
And that was like a light bulb moment for me.
Sure.
Because I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Because as we see, Paul's in prison.
Right. He can't go nowhere.
He's in Rome.
Yeah, right.
And they're in Colossae.
Yeah, Colossae, yeah.
Right? So they're over there. He's over here. Mm-hmm. He's writing them. He includes even though they're co-laborers and they're co-workers and all this, he includes the immediate people to be a part of that conversation.
Sure.
To be a part of the accountability for what's about to happen.
Right. And I love how he does it up front because what he's doing is he's allowing them to read the letter.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I think a lot of times we confront and then we're like, all right, now this person's going to hold them accountable, but they were never even a part of the conversation.
Right.
Right. Paul off the jump says, hey, by the way, share this with these people.
Yeah.
Because they're going to help. They're going to help. This is all going to be, it's for all of us.
Right.
Even though I'm just going to be talking to you, Philemon, I'm really talking to you and these other two to help make sure that you can do the things you need to do.
Yeah. I think that part is really important because what I realized is when I would read this, and like people can go back and listen to this. Paul, Tommy and I broke down Philemon.
Sure. Yeah.
And we did not hit on this the same way you did.
Sure. Well, I was looking at different angles. Right. You know what I mean? 100%.
Which is why I think this is so great for us to present it as well. Because I think the work that Tommy and I did was good.
Oh, of course.
I think this just illuminates a little bit more. Like when I would read that, when he brings in the other two, in my mind, it was because they were complicit.
Sure.
Right? But when you add the accountability piece, you forget the fact, like I always was concerned by the idea of them being unified as being the three that were being corrected.
Sure.
Right? But when you think about it in a community aspect and them all working together, they suddenly become not a hindrance, but a boon or a group that can bring life to the situation.
Right. Well, in some ways they are guilty because they are allowing this to happen.
Right.
But there's also the certain sense of it's really Philemon's decision. It has to be Philemon who. So think about that in the communal context. We are all accountable to one another. So we can't just allow things to happen. But sometimes it's up to one person to really truly make that change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's something that I really like about Paul is in some ways he isn't singling Philemon out.
Yeah.
He is saying in some ways, hey, there's these others. I want you to but I also when I was looking at it from that conflict kind of how we're going to confront someone angle, I looked at it and said, the more people you can have on your team when you're trying to make I talk about transformation. When you're trying to make a transformational change, the better. Yeah. You know what I mean? The more people who can hold you accountable. And I think that's part of the problem with a lot of the ways we do confrontation is we do it, like you said, in a vacuum. It's one-on-one. No one knows what's happened. No one knows what was said. No one knows what to do next. And it usually explodes. The pressure's just too big. Here, Paul's shouldered the load, not just on himself, but on Timothy, on Archippus, on Apphia. Everybody's come to the table now.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, too, it showcases that even though it's Philemon's decision.
Right.
His decision is going to be impacted and impact other people.
100%.
Apphia is supposedly his wife.
That's what they say. Right? Yeah. Sure.
And in Greek tradition or Roman tradition, like the concept there is that she was probably in charge of the household.
Oh, 100%. That they were meeting in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she would have been maybe the direct report for Onesimus.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. She would have been she was probably the one who was like, Onesimus is gone.
Yeah.
She was kind of, as far as slavery goes and bondservanthood, which what Onesimus actually is his bondservant, she would have been working with her for assignments and tasks and things like that, Yeah.
And they were having church in their house. So this is going to impact everybody.
Right.
Right.
Which is so funny, isn't it? I didn't say this in the sermon, but it's a series, but I love the idea that isn't it funny how oblivious we can be to sometimes just things? They're having church in their house. They're thinking they're doing everything right. And that's why I love Paul, because as we're going to talk about, Paul does, what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
And Paul doesn't come out and just punch him in the face. You know what I mean? But this idea is it's a community. It's a community. Yeah. It's in their house. It's a community. So therefore, confrontation should be communal.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. So let's get into a few scriptures.
Sure.
And they're going to highlight some aspects of this, right? So Deuteronomy 19:15 a single witness shall not rise up against a person regarding any wrongdoing or any sin that he commits. On the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, a matter shall be confirmed.
Right.
So we see right there in Deuteronomy, the law basically tells us like it's not good for Paul to accuse, to make an accusation, or to even, because he's not even so much accusing, as he is confronting. There's a slight difference there.
100%. Yeah.
But he even won't do that alone.
100%. Right. He's brought in someone to say they agree with Timothy is co-signed.
Right.
You know.
And then we see some of this practically in Matthew 18, 15 through 17. Now, if your brother sins, go and show him his fault in private. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen to you, take 1 or 2 more with you, so that the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, every matter may be confirmed. And if he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen to church, he is to be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Right. So this is we hear this model with like church discipline.
100%. Yeah.
You know, and so Paul obviously can't do the first part of this.
Right.
But like,
well, there's an argument that Paul kind of did. He helped the historicity of it is that Paul helps Philemon find Christ.
Yeah.
So now I'm not saying that Paul said, "Hey, you can't do this or you shouldn't do this," but there's a kind of Paul probably has already addressed some stuff, whether it be this or not, because Onesimus hadn't run away yet. Right. But probably addressed sanctification. Said there's going to be some things that you're going to need to give up because you're repenting and you're living in a new life. And as you're going to see, he leaves everything up to Philemon anyway. He probably left it in his court. Now Paul, in a certain sense, is kind of bringing that second step, that second person. But to your point, even if Paul wanted to start at 1, he couldn't.
Right.
And also he couldn't because part of the reason why they say he brings in Timothy and Titus and these letters and things like that is because Paul can't – they say the thorn in Paul's side is a vision problem. So Paul usually has somebody writing. So Paul already by default writing a letter has to bring another person
has to have somebody else.
You know,
yeah. Okay, so let's look at Ecclesiastes 4, 9 through 12. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion.
Right.
But woe to the one who falls when there is not another to lift him up.
Sure.
Furthermore, if 2 lie down together, they keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? And if one can overpower him who is alone, 2 can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart.
Right.
I think that's interesting. A cord of 3 strands.
Right.
He puts 3 of them together.
Right.
He gets them together. Right.
Well, you think about that too. He mentions 2, and then suddenly 3. Where's the third? Third is the God strand.
Right.
So when you are wrapping yourself with another with God, I mean, I do this all the time with marriage. You know, that's one of those. But it's one of those things that. But I think that's what's also kind of funny about Timothy too. Is there's a part of me that wonders if like Timothy was their buddy. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, we love Timothy. Say, and I wondered if he strategically was like, I'm going to make sure Timothy's with me on this one. You know, because that strand is stronger with 2, and when the one, maybe they're like, Paul's kind of a jerk. You know, because he can be sometimes, and so maybe like, but we like Timothy, so we might be more inclined to listen, or vice versa. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of.
Well, Paul wrote this, and I was going to be like, that's just Paul being Paul, but Timothy was there.
Yeah. So exactly.
Yeah.
And so but that's kind of what Ecclesiastes is saying. It's like 1 on your own, you're on island.
Yeah.
With 2, there are more options.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. More support.
Right.
So Galatians 6, 1 through 2 says, brothers and sisters, even if a person is caught in any wrongdoing, you who are spiritual are to restore such a person in a spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself so that you are not tempted as well. Bear one another's burdens and thereby fulfill the law of Christ.
Right.
So again, that's what we see here. Paul is attempting to restore situation, restore relationship.
Right.
And he is involving others to help bear that burden.
Right.
Right. Now, I think this is something that, again, this is a statistic, and I think I wrote these numbers down correctly.
Yeah. They look pretty right, yeah.
you don't have your original notes.
I can pull them up real quick, yeah.
Yeah. 55% of Christians join a church because they want a sense of belonging and community.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Okay, cool. 20% leave because the church was too cliquey.
Right.
Right?
100%.
I thought this was a really... telling about how we do community sometimes.
Sure.
Right? So like in this sense, if they're going to resolve this conflict, if they're going to resolve this matter,
Right.
they can't have Paul and Timothy and then the other three.
Right. 100%.
They have to be together. Right?
100%.
Even as you and I were kind of joking, like, well, that's Paul, but this is Timothy.
Right. Right.
Or it's like when Paul talks about, like, you want to be of Apollos and you want to be of Paul, but we really all should be of the gospel.
100%. Right. Well, and that's the central marking here, I think, that Paul understands is I say this kind of, and I don't mean it, but I'm going to say it because this is just a phrase. He cannot afford to lose this church.
Yeah.
It's important. It's important that they hear what he has to say. So important that he wants to make them known that they are important to him. You know what I mean? Like and I think that's kind of the thing when it comes to confrontation in community.
Yeah.
When you recognize the other person is just as important as you are.
Yeah.
You tend to approach that conversation a little bit more in a loving way or a more understanding way than just coming down and dropping a hammer. And I think that's what community does when it's just you and me and I'm the boss and you're the subordinate. You know, so I think that's something I think that's also interesting is because people want that.
Yeah.
Now they may not want the accountability, but they do want the relationship.
Yeah.
And I think it's our job as a church to help teach accountability and loving accountability. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But I do think it was a really interesting statistic as I was thinking about this idea is Paul knows the importance of relationship. Not just with Jesus, and that's very important, but he also knows I have to have that vertical relationship with Jesus and that horizontal with people. And so that's why he starts this letter off. He could have just said, I'm Paul, this is what I want you to do it, see ya. But that's not how the letter goes. I mean, it's close, it's almost just as short, but it's completely different in his approach. And it's because he starts from this place of, I want to preserve the community.
Yeah.
I want to preserve Philemon. I want to preserve, and I want to also preserve Onesimus, right? That's the other part. It's like we've been talking a lot about Philemon, but the thing is now Philemon has to kind of think of Onesimus in a new way, which he should have been thinking all along. But Onesimus has now become a Christian. He's met Paul and become a Christian. Yeah. Now he's equally a part of the community. Yeah. And Paul's kind of writing to say, hey, your community, he's supposed to be community too.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and I think that really showcases, like, so when we look at that statistic, it was 20% leave because the church is too cliquey. Right. They have their positions and we have ours. Right. And you don't believe somebody is going to walk through tribulation with you if they won't say hi to you at church or if they see you as beneath them. Right. Which is what Onesimus would be walking back into.
100%. Onesimus would be going to a church where he is a believer but not counted as a believer. Right. You know, like not as the in crowd. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Hebrews 10, 23 through 25. Let's hold firmly to the confession of our hope without wavering. For he who promised is faithful. And let's consider how to encourage one another in love and good deeds, not abandoning our own meeting together, as is the habit of some people, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. Right. And then this is the tagline that I remember: community is key to cultivation. Right. And I think that's what Hebrews is saying here. So like that, I think is huge. Sure. As somebody who has struggled with the desire to skip church quite a bit.
Sure. Everybody does. Yeah.
The thing is, you do that because it can feel uncomfortable to develop relationships. Right. But man, it's not nearly as uncomfortable as having no relationships. Do you know what I mean?
Well, just the idea, if the church, and this is the goal, if the church can really understand that idea of koinonia, the community, that's what Greek is, or the community is in Greek is koinonia. But it's a deeper understanding of relationships. It's a much more co-invested existence. Yeah. Like if we can truly understand that idea of churches coexisting together, and I'm not meaning like the bumper sticker, but I'm talking like your life and my life are now suddenly kind of merging into one strand of life that's coming together, right? And we're going towards that God strand of, you know. Yeah. And so if we can understand that, you start to recognize how lonely the isolation is. Yeah. And the benefit of good community. Good community really can help you in your times of need, when you have problems. Like, I mean, and I'm talking like when you have marriage problems, but I'm also talking like when you're like, man, like I'm just really struggling right now. I'm just feeling really down and I need someone to talk to. All alone, it's like, yeah, it's you and God and that's great. But sometimes people hear God better than you do.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And and I would even challenge your thing. Community, they say neglecting to meeting together is the habit. Community doesn't just mean, I got to go to church on Sunday. That can, if you feel uncomfortable in the large group setting, sometimes people find it comforting because you can kind of hide. We don't really have a church that allows you to hide. You kind of, if you stand, our people will make sure, and like, because whether people realize it, and this is a funny thing, I love when new people come because they don't realize we don't have assigned seats, but everybody sits in the same kind of sections. So when you look around and you're like, I've not seen this face before. So we have a very loving community that does talk, and so it's one of those things. So I can understand the intimidation there, but Paul's point is, so Paul doesn't go to the whole church.
Right.
He goes to a couple people in the church, and they're probably the most relatable people to Philemon. And I think that that's the thing that we have to understand when it comes to community, is it's not saying, I need to take my sins before the church and say, here I am, I have sinned, forgive me. No. That's the last step. Okay. And that's if you haven't repented and haven't turned and haven't changed. No, take it to a couple people and let them help you.
Yeah.
Don't do it alone. Let them help you.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not going to find those people without community.
Yeah. And you're not going to grow. Because you'll get to a point to where you can only. That's why I have pastoral mentors, because I recognize that I got plenty of places to grow, but I recognize that there will come a point where it will be beyond me to grow, because I've exhausted all of my knowledge and things that I normally do, and having someone to hold you accountable and say, hey, are you doing this? Are you that helps me continue to grow. That cultivates me. That's what community does.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, if you try to have confrontation, if you try to give some form of correction or request an apology or do anything like that, and you've got no one to support you in that.
Right.
You've got no one to first check you to make sure that you even are on the right path.
Right.
And you've got no one to help you be accountable to actual reconciliation.
Right.
Like this is a hard thing to do.
100%.
Right? And a lot of us, when we don't feel like we have those options, we ignore the confrontation and we allow distance.
Right. And that's just as bad. And that's where I think it goes, like you said, goes back to that idea of community. If you're going to confront somebody, you better be ready to be in community with them.
Yeah.
Because you don't just, and I think I said this I don't remember when I said it. I know I said, but we like to see confrontation as this mic drop moment where we just drop them. We say what we want to say. We drop the mic and we're like, peace, we're out of here. But that is just so not what it is, especially what Paul is doing. He's added that accountability piece from the get-go. Like, hey, we're gonna work through this together. And even though I can't be here, there's some people who are going to help you. And so I think that that's so important for us. If we're going to confront somebody, we better be ready to say, I'm ready to help you.
Yeah.
I'm not just pointing the speck out, because we were talked about this last episode. Like, we talk about the log in the eye.
Yeah.
But so many people also have we still need to get that speck out of that other person's eye.
Absolutely. I mean, I would rather just post passive aggressive memes on Facebook.
right. Than actually be in community with them, because that takes time and effort, but that will change people's lives.
Yeah.
It does. I've seen it firsthand. Yeah.
It does.
If it's done right.
Yeah.
And if it's done wrong, it also changes them too. Yeah.
So doing it right gets us to the second point.
Right.
You got to do it in love.
100%.
Right. And I say kill them with kindness. That almost seems a little backhanded.
Sure. There's a truth to it, though.
I mean, I don't like complimenting anybody without a backhand, but
It needs to wake them up a little too. Yeah.
Right. Well, you don't want them to get too, ego driven. But but when we look at like what's happening here,
sure,
Paul clearly cares about Philemon.
Yes.
Right. He clearly cares about their fellowship.
Yeah.
He cares about the church that's there. He cares about his family.
Yeah.
He cares about his relationships.
Yep.
Right. Paul is invested and loves Philemon.
100%. The words that Paul uses are nothing but building up words.
Yeah.
So he first says, "Hey, Timothy's here. By the way, show this to Archippus and Apphia," and then he kind of goes into this weird, like, if you're from the angle I'm reading it too, you start looking, you're like, well, why is he doing this? What is he trying to do? Because all of a sudden he doesn't just jump into it. All right, let's talk. He begins by building Philemon up and saying, like, the saints are rejoicing and how amazing. Like, he's really he's talking Philemon up.
Yeah.
Like, and it's kind of funny because he is killing him with kindness. Now, it's sincere kindness, though. He's not faking it. He really, truly believes. He loves him.
Yeah.
He really does. He calls him a fellow. He calls him a brother. I mean, so Paul has a relationship with Philemon that is not false.
Yeah.
Philemon would read this and wouldn't be like, yeah, right, Paul.
Right.
He'd be like, "That's my boy," like that. Paul's a good guy,
Yeah.
I love when Paul comes, and then Paul's about to drop a little bomb on him, but there is this idea of Paul just doesn't dive in and start hammering away at Philemon. In fact, he never does.
Yeah.
We're going to find that out. But he is completely engrossed in love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He kind of gives him an Oreo sandwich there.
100%. Yeah. Exactly right.
Verses 8 and 9, this is what Paul says. He says, "Therefore, though I have enough confidence in Christ to order you to do what is proper, yet for love's sake, I rather appeal to you, since I am such a person as Paul, an old man, and now also a prisoner of Christ Jesus."
Right.
I love this verse. These two verses.
Sure.
He doesn't. So it's interesting. He doesn't say, because I'm an apostle,
Right.
I could order you.
Right.
He says, because I have enough confidence in Christ.
Right.
Right. He knows what the truth is.
He's so convicted. He knows.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, we've all met those people
Right.
who say, and have been those people.
Sure.
Who say, I just tell it like it is.
Right.
I have a confidence that this is what is right.
Right.
And I'm going to just tell it to you.
Right.
And that's just who I am.
Right.
And you need to buck up and hear it.
Right.
And get in line with what God says.
I know what God says, and I'm so confident and so convicted of it that I don't need to justify anything. I don't need to say anything. I can say it and drop the mic.
Right. And look, here's the thing. I think Paul has had moments.
Sure, he does.
Where he's been like.
With the Galatians in particular.
Yeah, with the Galatians. He's like, look.
Right. Yeah. He gets a little more in their face, but I also think it's a differing of a relationship, and it's also a differing. He's singling one person out here.
Right.
He's not singling out he's singling out all the Galatians.
Right.
So
he says, I can do this with confidence.
Right.
But instead, I'm going to do this with love.
Right.
And he says, because I am like Paul.
Right.
Because I am a prisoner. Because I am old.
Right.
Because I am all these things.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like, I feel like Galatians Paul is a younger Paul. And Philemon Paul is an older
Philemon
Paul.
it is, because Philemon is written while he is in prison, and he's going to die in a few years, and he doesn't know that yet. But he is in the latter phases of his ministry, and he's learned some. And but to your point, it's really funny because I read that and I was like, you're Paul.
Yeah,
you can do whatever you like. And I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way, but like the authority Paul had was that of the apostles. I mean, he had enough conviction to stand against Peter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
he was the guy.
Yeah. So if anybody would be the guy to be like, I say it, you do it, it would be Paul.
Or let's even like break it down even to make it even more.
Right.
Paul what, planted this church?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Right.
He started it because they say it came out of that. The historians kind of say it was Paul's time in Ephesus, and then I think I think it's Epaphras is the actual quote unquote pastor, but he's up. We'll find out later. He's in prison too. So kind of they say that Philemon's kind of become the de facto leader now. Yeah. It's in his house already, but Epaphras, I think I'm saying his name right. I have to go look and make sure, but They say that he was the actual one. So, but Paul has a heavy hand in starting this church.
Yeah. And this all also reminds me of Paul's relationship with John Mark.
Right.
And so if there's somebody who understands reconciliation, I think Paul and John Mark is a great example.
For sure.
When he decides, I don't want to have anything to do with John Mark because he abandoned us during one of our mission trips.
Right.
Which puts a schism between him and Barnabas.
100%. Right? Yep.
Is it Barnabas? Yeah.
It's Barnabas. Yep.
And so he goes off instead with somebody else.
Right.
And is it Silas?
Yeah.
So he goes off with Silas instead. But later we see, and when Paul gets older, he says, "Send John Mark to me, for I find him useful." Like I have need of him.
Right.
Like he has a reconciliation with John Mark and realizes that he maybe was a little too harsh, although he may have been correct.
Right.
But he maybe was too harsh in that.
Right.
And
that's what I love about Paul is he has that.
Yeah.
He's learned a little something here. It looks like because he says, "I appeal to you."
Yeah.
That was the thing that really, he said it twice, and that's what really stood out to me in this verse was he uses I can't remember the Greek word now, but I remember one thing about it was it's the same word as begging.
Yeah.
So here's Paul saying, I have the confidence to say, do this, but because I love you, I'm actually begging you.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to humble, and he does. Then he proceeds to humble himself. I'm in prison.
Yeah.
I'm an old man. You know, like he starts to humble himself and say, I am Paul, but by the way, I got all these things. So I'm gonna beg you to do these things instead of demand, you know?
Well, if he demands, he has no physical power to follow up.
100%, yeah.
Right? But if he convinces him, then he is confident that he's doing the right thing. Right. So,
and it's all coming from a place of love. I think that's the other point is he's also begging because I could do these things, but I love you, dude. I don't. And I've been in conversations with people where they are difficult things, and I'll say like, hey, this is going on, or I see this, or hey, the expectation is X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, I'm not trying to get rid of you. I am not trying. I want to see you succeed. And that's kind of what Paul is doing. Is saying like, I love you, dude. Like when and he hasn't even asked yet, but he's saying like, I love you, dude. And what I'm gonna ask, well, he's asking right there. What I'm asking you to do is because I really want you to do it.
Yeah.
I want you to do the right thing, not me make you do the right thing.
And this is exactly why we have an aversion to the whole telling your children because I said so.
Right.
Because we know it doesn't yield a change of heart.
Right.
Instead, it yields fear.
Right. 100%.
And that's not what he's trying to get to here.
Right. Because that might be the basis of wisdom and knowledge of God, but not of community.
Right.
Love is the basis for community.
Right.
God's love. Granted.
God's love.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. God's love.
Right.
And so he's writing this with Timothy. Timothy's there. Timothy's the pastor of Ephesus.
Yeah.
And listen to what he wrote to church in Ephesus in Ephesians 4:14-16. As a result, we are no longer to be children, tossed here and there by waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of people, by craftiness and deceitful scheming, but speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in all aspects into him who is the head, that is Christ, from whom the whole body being fitted and held together by what every joint supplies, according to the proper working of each individual part, causes the growth of the body for the building up of itself in love. Right. So this is consistent with what he was teaching in Ephesus.
Always. Yeah.
And then you have Timothy co-signing, who was part of that teaching.
Part of there, sure.
Right. And one of the things I love about this verse, when we talk about speaking the truth in love, a lot of times we make the mistake of saying that we're sugarcoating.
Sure. Right, yeah.
You sugarcoat stuff for children who have no understanding.
Right.
Paul says that speaking the truth in love is the result of adulthood.
Right, sure.
He says, hey, we are grown up.
Right.
And we are growing up in all aspects of Christ. Right. So we're going to put away childishness.
Right.
Which is to tell you how it is.
Right.
And we're going to speak the truth in love.
Right.
And I think that for me is just...
Yeah, I love when people say, "Oh, well, you're being too kind with your confrontation." You're like, "Well, no, you're missing the point."
Right.
Because if you really want someone to change, kindness changes a lot more.
Right.
Transformation really comes from that.
I think the reason why it's a little bit harder now is how many people's transformations are we supposed to take responsibility for?
Sure.
The further apart we are, the closer we are together, the further. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is it feels like we're connected to more people than ever.
Oh,
right.
Yeah,
and a lot
church has grown.
Yeah,
even our church was by no means a big church. Would be a quote unquote mega church back in Jesus' day. Yeah.
Here's a good example. This podcast.
Right.
Doing this right. So we get people who comment on our videos and our stuff. I even got it on Instagram at this point.
Oh wow! I don't even know we had one.
We don't. It's my personal Instagram.
Oh,
yeah.
Just follow it. They find you.
I sometimes put some of the shorts on there.
Oh, okay, very cool.
And they'll say stuff and they'll either contradict. Some people will be like, "Hey, this is great." Other people will be like, "This is dumb."
It's because they've only listened to the drum comments. That's pretty
right. And the part that the thing that I always struggle with is, Lord, how much of this conversation do I have to have?
Right.
In this context, right?
Right.
Like if I just applied Ephesians 4:14-16 to every conversation with every person.
Oh, for sure.
I think we missed the first part of this, which was the community aspect.
Sure.
I think some of us need to hear this. The people you're friends with on Facebook are not your community.
100%. Right? Yeah.
Some of them might be a part of your community.
Right.
But just because you're connected to somebody or because they commented on a video, that's not necessarily your part of your circle. 100%. That you are responsible for having that conversation with them.
One of my mentors, his name's Brian, he said, and I forever, you can't shepherd the sheep you don't have.
Right.
Like, and that is like something I've always I've taken to heart as a pastor, is like my duty to disciple is to the people at this church. Now, I will gladly disciple anybody out in public if they're asking, or, you know, because the people see me, you know, I coach sports, and when parents find out I'm a pastor, they, of course, everybody's always wants to talk to you when they're suddenly like, oh, I need to talk to you about church, you know, things like that. But like when I'm out and I'm doing, so like there's discipleship, but like truly who I'm investing in are the people in my church. And so that's where when it comes to confrontation, that's the limits of my I'm not going to comment because here's the reality that also I think is, and this is where it goes both ways. Proverbs talks about you don't argue with fools.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm not yet saying our audience is fools, but I'm saying if I don't know you, I don't know if you're a fool or not. So I'm not going to engage in an argument with somebody or also not an argument. It's supposed to be a discussion.
If you come on to one of our videos and say the Bible clearly supports slavery, then I do know you're a fool.
Right.
And I'm not
because you haven't read it. Yeah.
Because you clearly haven't done the due diligence here, right?
Sure.
But I think, like, kind of like to your point there.
Yeah.
We have to have this community to be able to have that conversation.
100%.
We go back to the Paul having the conversation with Galatians, right?
Right.
Where he's a little bit more fiery, he's a little bit more fired up.
Right.
He is still technically, like if you read it, he's really pleading with the Galatians in love to return to the gospel.
100%.
The people that he is short with
They're people who've led them all astray.
are the people who've led him astray.
100%.
Are the people who are not his community.
Right.
And like that's a thing that's really tough for me.
Sure.
I even feel bad just even having said what I just said about the people who comment on this video, right? It makes me I feel bad because I'm like, oh man, am I doing this right? Like,
sure.
I don't want to be dismissive of people. I don't want to be hateful. I don't want to do that. But at the same time, you get to a point where it's like enough is enough and a fool is a fool.
Right.
And as Proverbs tells us, don't bother with that.
I think, and that's where we had talked about this in the series early on. Like, it has to be like when you're doing it when you're doing confrontation in the Christian way of confrontation, it has to be constructive.
Yes.
And I honestly do not find anything constructive about online. That's not your real community. Because you know what's and that's why I believe Paul brings the community in. Paul can't be constructive of Philemon in this case because he's stuck, and I believe fully we wouldn't even have, if Paul wasn't in prison, we wouldn't even have Philemon. Yeah. Because he would have traveled back up to Colossae. Yeah. Because he was planning to go on a mission trip. In fact, he says at the end, prepare a room for me. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But like his plan was to come back there. Yeah. So I guarantee Paul would have, when he got back there, said, hey, man, he probably would have brought Onesimus with him too. You know what I mean? So it would have been a personal, he had the community, the relationship. But again, it all goes back to love.
Yeah.
And that's because love is always constructive. It always builds. It doesn't break things down. It builds them up.
Doesn't tear people down.
Exactly right. Yeah.
It also doesn't allow someone to build in error.
100%. Oh, that's when we talked about, we said it earlier, God's love. Because see, that's the difference here, is he's operating under an understanding of God's love. Not just, oh, I love you, dude. He uses the word, and we've already talked about it. He does not use phileo. He's not talking our phileo, not talking about a brotherly love. He uses agape, right? This is a godly, I love you like God loves you.
Right.
You know, this is that idea, a community that is deeper than the world's understanding of community. You know,
right. Yeah. Exactly. Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity.
Yep.
So again, love has to be the way we are doing these things together. 1 John 3:18. Little children, let's not love with word or with tongue, but in deed and truth. Right. And again, it comes back to, it's not just, I say I love it because it goes back to the Ephesians 4 verse.
Right.
He said, little children, don't do this with your word or your tongue.
Right.
Don't just say how it is.
Right.
Do this in deed and truth.
Immature people only talk.
Right.
You know, that's what he's saying. Man, children talk.
I am so immature. Yeah. I prefer to just talk.
Sure.
I would rather just talk. I'd rather be the subject. I'd rather have be the subject matter expert than to actually be the one because this is challenging.
Sure. But I think that's where one of the things I've learned. And I hate confrontation. I do. I'll be real with you. I do not like. Some people run to it. I for the longest time ran from it. The only reason why I have to do it is because I recognize the importance of if we don't talk about this, especially in the church. I don't really confront people in life. I confront them in church because it's kind of my job as a pastor to help. Yeah. You know, but I'm cultivating them. So if you think of cultivation, like, so the thing is, and we talk a little bit about this, is like love with in truth and deed. The reality is it's all about us loving. It has nothing to do with them yet.
Right.
You know, and I think that that's the thing is confrontation is about us out of love going to them and saying, hey, see this, what's going on? Can I help? Is there anything I can do? But the solution still lies with Philemon.
Yes.
Right. And Paul even says, I could tell you what to do, but I'm appealing to you. Yeah. And I love that because it's something I think we miss with confrontation. Confrontation of love, I hesitate to say this because I think people are going to get mad, makes it a choice.
It does.
It puts the onus on the person.
Yeah.
Not on you. I've done my job. I've confronted you. I've told you the truth. You've now heard the truth. Hopefully you've received it because I've done it in love. But I don't have to convince you of the truth.
Right.
That's where the Spirit comes in. But that's what love does. That's the truth in the deed. The word is I've come to you and I've convicted you. Yeah. The truth is the action. Now I'm going to show you that I really care about you. So I'm not just going to say, hey man, you really blew, this is a pastor example. Hey man, you really blew, I'm just hypothetically. So if someone in the ministry is listening to this and they're like, is he talking about me? Hey man, you really blew this. And this event was awful and it didn't go well. I would never say that. But if that's the gist of the conversation, it's like, hey, one of the things, especially if I said, hey, like this is how I would handle that. I'd be like, hey, so how do you think this event went? Okay, they give me they probably say some things, and I'd say, yeah, you know, I saw that. Tell me kind of what happened there. I'm getting an understanding. And I'm saying, okay, well, you know, here's some of the things I saw, and here's kind of my concerns because these things led to these things and that, you know. So now I'm confronting them with the problem, and then what I always do is I say, okay, so let's talk about this. What can we do different? What could we do? Like I'm giving them the opportunity to change. Yeah. But I'm also saying I'm going to be a part of that change with you. How can I help you in this? What can I? And that's what Paul, that's when you do it in love, they might not change. Okay, now eventually you're going to have a push comes to shove moment and say, well, we've had this conversation. It happened again. Unfortunately, maybe this isn't, we say it in church, not the right seat in the bus for you. Yeah. We might need to move you. But that's their decision. Right. I think that's the thing. We think confrontation is our decision. That we need to convince them of what they need to do. But really the reality, and this is what I love about Paul, is he's saying, no, Philemon, I love you, buddy. I'm going to tell you what I would do in your situation, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, he is at the same time telling him what to do.
Oh, 100%.
Which is really, but I don't know, for me, it keeps coming back to this thought about how Jesus presented things as well. Right. Jesus is asked at one point, why do you tell parables? Right. And he's like, because if I said it black and white, you'd immediately have to choose one or the other. Right. But if I let you discover the truth through these stories and through these parables, you see the wisdom in choosing the right thing. Right. But if I just say, hey, it's A or B, pick one. Right. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You're either in or you're out. That's not a love.
That's not parenting either, right? That's why you said that's because I said so doesn't work, because I said so doesn't lead to understanding and growth. And what Paul is doing here is out of love, giving Philemon the opportunity to make it his so that he will then own it. Right. That's we do that with our faith, right? That was me. Like I was told it's either this or this all of my life, and I love my parents, and they tried their best. But I got to a point where eventually I realized I have no faith in my own. I have no reason to believe. What he's given is Philemon every reason to do it. Yeah. You know. Now, granted, he is saying, "Hey, man, like I'm letting you know this is what," and this is where we come in. This is what Christians do. This is what Jesus says. This is what the Bible says. That's the confrontation. It's the truth. Yeah. What you do with the truth is up to you, not me. You know?
Yeah, we want people to make a choice out of illumination, not out of fear and coercion. Right. And that's what he's getting to. And I think this is important. Like, the choice, though, is important.
Sure. Right? Oh, yeah.
The love is not the end-all, be-all. Right. The truth really is.
100%. Right.
So our love must lead us somewhere. It has to be the guide for delivering the truth.
For sure.
But the truth is still what's important.
Yeah. I mean, just you got to go all the way back up to Matthew 18. Like, what happens? They don't listen. There is eventually a severing. Yeah. But again, just like we talked about in our last podcast, there's grace. There's grace throughout this. And I think a lot of us, we don't, especially in these conversations, because again, Philemon has not brought this up to the church yet. Right. He's not bringing it up to, he's not gone to Peter and to James and to the disciples and said, hey, y'all, we got a problem out here. I'm going to need you guys to step in and put the foot down as the church. You know, right. No, he's going to his brother. So
Right.
he's still giving those and then he's gone to his brother. He brought a couple people in from the church, but not the whole church. He didn't.
Right.
He didn't. He says say hi to him, but he doesn't bring them into this letter. Doesn't name them. He's giving opportunity.
Yeah.
And we need to do that.
Right, because his goal, as you've said, is not confrontation.
Right.
It's transformation.
Right.
And his desire for transformation in Philemon's life is rooted in his love for Philemon.
Right. He wants to see him succeed.
He wants to see him succeed.
Yeah.
1 Peter 4:8 says, above all, keep fervent in your love for one another, because love covers a multitude of sins.
Yes.
This doesn't mean that love allows you to overlook a multitude of sins.
No, in fact, love points that out. That's
Right.
what it says. Does not rejoice in wrongdoing.
Right. But it requires, that's why it requires your fervency.
100%. Right.
Because we all have a multitude of sins in our lives that we have to
Right.
figure out.
Right.
But it's that love that helps us navigate it, that helps us get through it, that helps us overcome it,
Right.
that gets us to that place of that transformation.
Right. And that transformation becomes authentic when it's done in love, because you've not rooted it in the fear
Right.
of repercussion.
And when you're doing that in love, you're doing it in community.
100%.
You're doing it together.
Yes, you're doing it together. Yes.
Right. So the last point here is that we also need to do this with expectation. Right. We've talked about this. If we're doing this in community, if our goal here is getting closer to Jesus, and we're all supposed to be pursuing that goal together, right? We should be able to assume that they signed up for this.
Right. Yeah.
We should also be able to assume that we signed up for this.
Right.
And that goes both ways.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
I need to know that I signed up for being corrected by you.
Right.
As much as you need to be knowing that I might bring something to you at some point.
100%.
As brothers in Christ.
Right.
Like, we are doing this together.
Yeah. That's if you root it in community and it starts and is established in community, you understand that as a result of community, there will be things that you have to do yourself and things that you will have to point out to others.
Right.
But again, if you're doing it in love, you understand that this is cultivation. This is not about I am kicking you. I love, like, I have seen so many people say, well, we got to kick them out of that. No, that's not the point.
Right.
If you're trying to kick someone out of something, first off, they probably should have never been in that to begin with.
Right.
But second off, you're missing the point. Even if they shouldn't be there, you have an opportunity to help them grow.
Yes.
Right. And so that's where the love comes in. But you said with expectation is so important, because you should assume that you signed up with this, but you should also assume that, like, if I'm going to do this, there's something should happen.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're just doing this just to say I did it and to wash my hands of it, you're missing the point of what Christian confrontation is.
Yeah.
Maybe the worldly confrontation is, okay, I spoke my piece, I dropped the mic, and now you feel like crap. Like, see ya. That's not how this works, though.
Right.
We do it with an expectation that they want this, but also with the expectation that they're willing to work on this.
Yes.
Vice versa, that we are also asking for this. And this is, I would caution people, when you are confronted, don't immediately go in defense mode and start pointing the specks out, right? Because when someone points a speck out in your eye, immediately you miss the point. You start saying, well, you've got a log in your eye, you've got a log in your, but you still have your speck in your eye. So take that and embrace that and say, oh, thank you for that. You're right. I do need to work on that. And then don't come back and say, and you got to work on, confrontation is not a competition. Right. You know what I mean? It's a conversation. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. So I would encourage you, if you're being confronted, don't get defensive. And if you are confronting, make sure you are also humble enough to know that you need to work on some things too. And I think when you say that, like, hey, like, I do this a lot. Like, when someone screws up, I talk about how I've screwed up. So they know I'm not just coming to them because I'm mad. I'm coming to try and really, I want them to, because I've been in your shoes. I've seen, man, I did that in my ministry. And I'll tell you what, man, I had like 5 people call me and they were so ticked. And I had one person who was like, I might leave the church over this. And so I'm trying to help you here. That's why I'm saying this. Why I'm bringing it. I think that's the expectation that we bring into these conversations is that it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, it's going to be beneficial. And I think there's also reasons to have some of these expectations.
Right.
So I think something that Paul does in this letter to Philemon is he early on in kind of the setup loving stage.
Right. Yeah.
He says, you've been refreshing the brothers in Christ.
Right. Yeah.
And then he gives him his ask. And
Right.
He says, this is what I need you to do.
Right.
And then he follows that up with refresh me in Christ.
Right.
And this is like, I think this is why Paul can expect, and eventually in verse 21, he says, having confidence in your obedience, I write to you since I know that you will do even more than what I say.
Right.
Because he's already set Philemon up. I know what you're capable of.
Right.
You've done these really great things.
Right.
I'm asking you to continue to do those great things
Right.
in this area.
I'm making you aware of something you're not aware of. Not saying you're wrong, because I just called you an awesome guy.
Right.
But saying, hey, now I'm bringing this to your attention. And now because you've done that sandwich you talked about, because you've done so good, here's that I know you can.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's because I've seen you do this.
Right.
And because I know that you signed up for this.
Right.
I know that you can now handle this.
Right. And he's going to exceed. I love that he says it.
Right.
You're going to exceed my expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the next part of that expectation is we don't always have confidence in someone else.
No, 100%.
And I know I can say this for myself.
Yeah.
I certainly don't always have confidence in me.
100%.
Right.
Right.
And like this is one of the things that keeps me from offering confrontation or conflict
Sure.
or like even correction or any of that. Like
Sure.
The thing that is I'm afraid that I'm not going to be enough to convince. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm not going to do this in love. I'm not going to.
Right.
I think what we have to do is we have to take the expectation off ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Look, we want to be in community. We're going to do our best to be in community.
Right.
We're going to do our best to say all this in love.
Right.
You're not going to do it perfectly. You need
Right.
to know that. So what you need to expect is for the Holy Spirit to step up.
100%.
Right? It's not in my power of persuasion.
No.
It's not in the office that I hold.
No.
It's only in the truth.
Yeah.
And it's only in the love of Christ.
No one's ever changed because I'm the pastor. You know what I mean? Like
right.
it's because Jesus is Jesus, and that's who changed them. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Psalm 127 verses 1 and 2 says, "I will raise my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come?
Yep.
My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Behold, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep."
Right.
I think this is a great promise for us when we need to be involved in confrontation.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? He can help you confront in love.
Right.
He can help you receive confrontation in love.
And love, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
He can be your help. He can help this make sense.
Right.
He can reveal all these things to you.
If you put the trust in you and your ability, you've missed it, because
Yes.
you're not going to be able to do it. If you put your trust in the person that they will do this, you've missed it, because they
Right.
won't. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, they will, but they will because God works within them and the Spirit moves within them and leads. And I think that's where you put your faith, you can have a higher expectation that what your confrontation is going to lead to is transformation. And I will say this, if you're truly doing it in love, you don't really need to worry about what's going to happen, because if you're really doing it in love, you know what you're doing? You're thinking about them.
Yeah.
You're thinking about, okay, and I do this all the time. I think about, if you think, how do I, because like I've talked to someone about this, like they were like, well, I'm trying to confront them in love. And I said, that's cool. But are you confronting them in the way that they need to be loved, or the way you need to be loved? Because the way you need to be loved is direct with this. And, you know, I brought in, there's an old book called The 5 Love Languages. Yeah. And as a pastor, I still use it a lot, because when you're talking to people, it really helps them receive. If you know that words matter to somebody, I'm going to be much more careful with the words and encouraging words that I'm using. If I know that actions mean more, I'm going to make sure I'm doing action to make sure that they know I'm going to support them. If I know that physical touch means more, I'm going to do it like around a table. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to hug them. That's weird. You know, but I'm going to say, like, let's go get lunch. Some people I can confront in my office, because I know what they need to hear is not a table talk. It's not quality time together.
Right.
It's you and me. Just you need the building up. And that's probably what Philemon's love language was, words of affirmation, right? That's what Paul does, is he affirms him and says, dude, you're doing a great job. You're so awesome. By the way, here's something, but I believe in you. I believe you can do this. You know, and Philemon, by all extents, there is no Philemon 2. So by all extents, we believe, and scholars say there's a good chance that Philemon did, in fact, do everything that Paul asked him to do with Onesimus.
Yeah.
So you know, Paul did something right. You know, yeah,
right.
Or the Lord did. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, well,
because that's who he trusted in.
Paul was obedient.
Right. Paul, exactly right. Yeah.
Let's look at Philippians 1:6. For I am confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work among you will complete it by the day of Jesus Christ.
Right.
So I think in this principle, in this concept here that Paul talks about in Philippians, again, we put our expectation in the Spirit.
100%.
We put our expectation in Christ. He is going to do this. He is going to be the one that makes this happen for us. Right. And so we don't, again, or I'm just rehashing everything.
Sure. Yeah.
But like, we don't do this of our own accord. We don't do this because it makes us look good.
Right.
We don't do this so that we can have a successful YouTube or a
100%,
successful podcast or
sure.
successful ministry.
Right. No.
Or a larger church. And then everybody.
It's about the kingdom.
Yeah.
All about the kingdom.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. It's not about what we can build for ourselves. It's what can we do that gives God what he wants.
Right.
So that he will do what he can do.
And I think, it was funny when you were reading that the passage of the sower who sows seeds and he just throws them out there.
Yeah.
Some fall in fertile ground, some fall, there's all these different grounds. The point is we need to be throwing, and we've had a podcast, we need to be throwing those seeds. And that's confrontation. And that's discipleship. Really what we're talking about here today is discipleship. Because when you're discipling, you're going to have these difficult conversations. And so we need to throw the seeds of discipleship out. We need to throw them lovingly.
Yeah.
But we need to make sure that we're not holding them.
Yeah.
If it falls on tough ground, so be it. But if you're doing it, that's the point here. Is you never know.
Yeah.
The seed may sit on hard ground for years, and then suddenly something happens that causes that ground to soften, and it's made complete in the day of Jesus. You know what I mean? Like that. Our job is to throw the seed.
Yeah.
Because here's what I've learned, and this is what I find so often, and this is what I've learned personally. And if you do not confront people and help them lead themselves to change and transformation, all you get is stagnation. They're not going to change because they're going to continue doing the same thing. Confrontation is a push comes to shove moment that says, okay, now I've recognized this. Now I have the choice. What am I going to do with it?
Right.
So think about how detrimental it is if you're like, I don't want to throw that. Because I know, and sometimes you throw it, and I know you and me, we both talked about this. Sometimes you throw it out, and the person you talk to, you're like, wow, that couldn't have gone any worse. And that is going nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the truth. And so you just kind of accept that now, again, I'm putting my trust in the Spirit to take this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, then that's the thing that hinders us is we put our trust in how they'll respond. We put our trust in how we're going to say it.
Right.
I know this isn't going to go anywhere, so I'm not going to bring it up.
Right.
Okay, is that the way I do this?
Sure.
And it's funny, you talk about throwing the seed in love. I just got this picture of the farmer being like, you want your seed? Here's your seed.
Exactly right. Yeah.
These seeds at the ground.
Yeah.
But to your point, look, we throw the seed out. We're not responsible for what God does with that seed.
Right.
God's responsible for that.
Right.
And when somebody responds to it, at that point in our community, we can help cultivate it.
Right. The loving thing to do is to throw the seed because that leads to growth.
Yes.
Because without the seeds, there is no growth.
Yeah.
So if we throw them out and we're throwing them out lovingly, like you said, we're not showering, and we're throwing them out and we're doing our best to cultivate that ground, but yet it's just bad ground, we have to trust that God will do it. Because like you said, a lot of times we think, well, this is never going to work. This person's never going to listen, so I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
And if you felt compelled to say something in the first place, you got to ask yourself, well, why did I feel compelled to? And sometimes it's like, because I don't agree with this. Okay, well, that's not about you. It's about, does God agree with this? Right. And we're gonna talk a little bit about that more in some coming series. Actually, is what do we actually get to confront? But the idea really behind confrontation is you do it trusting, as Paul did, that Jesus is going to take, that the Holy Spirit's going to take this and move it to where it needs to be beyond even what we expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's good. So this is, I think, where we leave this message, right? So, when we talk about confrontation, when we talk about, and it's not just about agreement and disagreement. Right. It's, as you said, it's discipleship, it's growth, we do this together. Right. We don't do it in a vacuum. Right. We do it in love, and we do it with expectation that God will make a way.
Yeah, God can and will.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So I think the only other thing we should expect is that these drums are going to kick in.
100%. And if you make them loud, it'll shut everybody else up.
That's right. Yeah. So when all else fails, shut them up with your drums.
That's right.
Now listen to the first part, not this last part.